Welcome back to Issues and Interviews with Kieran Michael Lawler on the Hudson Power Broker Network. We're joined by my friend, and hopefully, come January, my colleague, Dean Michael. Good morning, Dean. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, if you're watching this, you know what you have to do right now? It takes 2 seconds. It's free. Subscribe to the Hudson Power Broker YouTube channel. Nobody's covering our Republican candidates. Nobody's covering politics in the Hudson Valley from a Republican perspective like we are at Hudson Power Broker. So do yourself a favor, do us a favor, subscribe right now. It takes 2 seconds and it's free. I'll even give you a second to do it. Go ahead and do it. You subscribed? Nice. All right. Dean, you're subscribed? Good man. Always good to appease the host of the show.
Absolutely.
So Dean, yes, absolutely. So we're going to get into your background. We're going to get into the issues, get into your opponent a little bit. But the broad strokes are this. You're running for the New York State Assembly, the highest calling of all, as far as I'm concerned. And you're running in the district just north of my district, the 106th Assembly District. Tell us about your background, D. Michael.
So, we actually grew up right down the street from each other.
You're right. Yes.
Unfortunately, I'm much older than you.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, 15 years.
I think I was your parents' paper boy.
And your father was my accountant.
That's right. Hey, it all happens on Brothers Road. Road. Very cool.
So, so I grew up in Wappingers, went to John Jay, which I guess our neighborhood is now Ketchum.
I know.
And then I went to Dutchess Community College and on to Marist College. And then a few years ago, I went back for my MBA and did that online through SUNY Empire State.
Oh, very cool. So you're a real Dutchess County guy. John Jay, Dutchess Community, and the Marist Red Foxes. Very cool. You know, it's interesting. Should you be successful against Didi Barrett, us, the John Jay folks, will be taking over the whole universe. Me, you, Sue Serino. I mean, I guess it's upon us to save the world. Right. Yeah, keep going. I didn't mean to.
I'll have to represent.
You will. Go ahead. So, and, give us a little more about your background professionally, and you've been in politics for a while.
Well, I've been on the town board for going on 13 years now. But I think it's more about a need to give back because I've been involved in things going back, starting in 1997. I was at the chamber, which was at that time the Poughkeepsie Chamber. And there was an organization called SCORE, and SCORE was a resource of the Small Business Administration. So what SCORE does, and they're still there since 1964, they provide business counseling for anybody that wants to either start a business or someone who wants to improve their business. So if they're having struggles or something like that. So we try to match them up with someone who has that specialty. And even though the acronym stood for Senior Corps of Retired Executives in 1997, I was not a senior executive. I mean, retired. But because of my finance and insurance background, they wanted me to be there, and I really enjoyed it. I did that for 10 years prior to, running for the town board. Being a coach for my son's baseball team, getting involved in other organizations over the years. Most recently, I'm on the Dutchess County ASPCA has a organization called Pets for Vets, where we try to give service. Well, they're not service animals, but people that can't get a service animal and you're a veteran, you could come to the Pets for Vets, and we would match you up with a cat or a dog, and give training and shots and all that stuff. So people have found that pairing people with PTSD or any other type of disorders, sometimes it works beneficial for them. So getting involved with that, a couple of children with cancer organizations, Angels of Light, and Love's Whole Life. As you know, because I've been to your office before with the Mortgage Bankers Association.
Sure.
I'm one of the directors there. I am also on an associate member of the Board of Realtors, and used to serve on the membership committee. And not to go through a whole list, but I just recently last year got appointed to the Dutchess County Resource Recovery Agency.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. That's a lot of community service there, Dean. You're in
And then I have
Dutchess
to go to
County.
work.
Yeah, then you have your day job. You have your day job. And you're on the town board in the town of Clinton. I believe you're a deputy town supervisor. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So town of Clinton is in the 106th Assembly District. It's a pretty big geographic district, bigger than mine in terms of square miles. Just give us kind of the parameters of your assembly district.
Well, if I had to give you a pointer, the most southern tip would be New Hamburg, down at the train station,
Right.
prior to going over the water. Because once you go over the water, then you're into the town of Wappingers, or the village of Wappingers, wherever that border is. And then so from the town tippy point of the town of Poughkeepsie all the way up to Ghent, up in Columbia County.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. See, that is a big geographic district. That's got to be a good 70 miles north to south, something like that.
Well, lucky enough, I'm pretty much in the middle from where I live, and living near the Deconic, I can pretty much get to every part of it within an hour.
That's not bad. I always, when I'm going to Albany, I stop in the town of Clinton. It's a nice little stop there where the Stewart shop is. They're super nice in there. I get my coffee in there, and there's there's a farm store across the street.
Yeah, the Hackett farm store. Yep.
Yes. Yep. That's what I think of when I think of the town of Clinton. I think of Dean Michael, and I think of the farm store and how nice they are at the Stewart shop there when I get my coffee and fill up my gas tank. So, Dean Michael, you're on the town board, you're deputy town supervisor, you're running for the New York State Assembly. What do you find the big issues are as you're campaigning around your district about 75 days before the election?
That's such a moving target at this point, with the whole COVID shutdown. I mean, things that, I started, coming into the race for has kind of shifted a little. I mean, the whole COVID thing, what Cuomo did as far as nursing homes, and now he's trying to take a victory lap and write himself a little memoir book.
That's insane.
It's disgusting. Quite frankly, I don't know if you knew, but my father-in-law, who was a Marine, and so I thought that would be passionate to you. But
I'm gonna let you keep talking because you said that.
Certainly a passionate Marine, went into the nursing home after a fall from the hospital. Had a fall, went to the hospital, went into the nursing home, and that was a horrible experience. I mean, with my mother-in-law being 90 years old, having to go visit him first at the nursing home, and then being told that she couldn't, having some guilt as far as putting him there. And then I think it was about 6 weeks later, finding out that he had COVID and not getting any phone calls or anything for over a week, to the phone call that my wife received saying, if you want to see him, we don't think he's going to last long.
Boy.
You better come in now. And so, she got on, double gloves, double masks and everything else, and went in and spent about an hour with him. And then to find out that she's sitting next to somebody who's dead in the bed next to her.
Oh my goodness, that's gut-wrenching.
So, I mean, these are all disasters, and Cuomo wants to take a pat on the back for that. I mean, I don't know what he's thinking.
I think he's trying to, and I said this on TV yesterday, I think it's so bad and he handled it so poorly that he's trying to flood the zone with positive information and misinform everybody. He's just getting his dishonest side of the story out there first.
Right.
He's writing the first draft of history, so to speak, and it's going to obscure the truth. Go ahead, Dean.
They say if you lie long enough, people will believe you.
Yeah, good point. Good point. George Costanza said, it's not really a lie if you believe it.
That's right.
And I guess Cuomo is subscribing to the George Costanza theory of the truth. So the 106th Assembly District for the last 8 or 9 years has been represented by Didi Barrett. You're taking on Didi Barrett in that district. Now, Didi, I haven't heard much from her on the nursing homes. I haven't heard much from her on the violence, not just in New York City. People think all the violence, the uptick in violence is in New York City. It's Poughkeepsie, it's Rochester, it's Troy, it's Buffalo, it's all over this state. I would trace it back to not to COVID, not to George Floyd, but early in the year, in January, when the bail reform and all those so-called criminal justice reforms came into effect, and we started to see this uptick. Didi voted for all that. Your thoughts on her vote for that, and your position on what's known as cashless bail and so-called criminal justice reform?
Yeah, I mean, we just saw yesterday where there was a high-speed pursuit. I guess somewhere starting in the town of Poughkeepsie, and because it was so reckless that the officer that was in pursuit was asked to release the pursuit because he had been crashing into a few things, and so the person kept on going, crashing into things, and finally got stopped, I guess, somewhere on the Deconic, and then try to take off on foot. And here's a guy who wasn't even from the area. I guess he's from Rome, New York. And with all the things that he did, between, almost hitting some people and, the property damage and the stolen car and everything else, he was let go on an appearance bond.
That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. And you multiply that over a state of 20 million people, where you have every town, every district attorney's office, every judge being forced to grapple with this terrible policy. At one point during COVID, the Manhattan DA, Cy Vance, asked for a moratorium on the criminal justice reforms that had come into effect because there were looters and rioters that were coming in the door, and a half an hour later they're going back out the door to continue the looting and the rioting. It's terrible policy. I hope everyone realizes that almost every Democrat in the Assembly and Senate, including Didi Barrett, voted in favor of that policy, which when COVID's over and things get back to so-called normal, that problem is not going away until we really reform it. We tweaked it a little bit back in March, but we didn't tackle the big problem that it's caused, and it's continuing to spiral.
Well, the other part of it was the discovery part. I had talked to one of the senior investigators in the state police, and he said he was going to give up his position as being a senior investigator and going back to a desk sergeant solely for the fact that the discovery law was going to make his job so impossible. Number one, to track down people. You got 14-day window to present your evidence. And so what's going to happen? We're going to take serious cases and plead them down to almost nothing just to come up with some type of a conviction. But for the most part, people are going to be let go. The bigger issue that I find is that in cases where someone was raped or murdered or something like that, these not convicted criminals, but these perpetrators are basically going to be allowed back at the scene. So you're going to have to let someone back into your house. They're going to be able to look all around your property and everything else. And to me, I would call that witness, witness
intimidation.
What?
Intimidation,
exactly. So how are these laws protecting us? I mean, I go back to the green light law, the bail reform, now they're trying to defund police. And of course, they've been cutting back on, people's ability to even have a gun to protect themselves. So between all these laws, we are becoming a less safe society, and allowing these looters and rioters to keep on doing what they're doing. It's just crazy out there.
Yeah, you make a good point about gun control. During all the gun control debates that I've been a part of, which go all the way back to the SAFE Act in 2013, the argument was you don't need your own firearms. The police will protect you. Don't worry about it. They'll be right around the corner. And now they're saying defund the police, disband the police. If you get a little further to the left, the AOC types are saying abolish prisons, abolish the police. Incredible stuff. And I don't hear Didi Barrett speaking out about this. I don't hear her say anything about this. She talks about the kind of nice little non-controversial issues, and I'm sure she, does her constituent services there. But these are huge issues that are roiling the state and the country. She's on the wrong side of them in terms of her vote, and I don't hear anything from her about it. And the other thing I don't hear about is she voted to give Cuomo almost 100% of the power in this state, abdicated her legislative duties, and allowed the legislature to give all the power over to Cuomo. He's made disastrous decisions, and I don't hear for her calling to take it back. Now, some of my colleagues that on the Republican side, they voted to give him the power in the fear that the pandemic was going to be out of control, and they would look bad if they didn't give him the power and didn't give Cuomo the funding to deal with the pandemic. But they regretted it and immediately said, "Okay, let's take these powers back. Let's make the governor relinquish it." I don't hear her saying any of that.
Yeah, I think no matter if it's the county executive, the governor, or even the president of the United States, these emergency orders, or even, his executive orders, should be temporary. So yes, we have to deal with emergencies, and we have to give our, leaders the ability to take care of things in those emergencies. But say 28 days, 30 days. And if you go beyond that, I think it should come back to the full legislative body, and they have to vote to extend it. It gives more of that balance.
Yeah, checks and balances. And we could do that. If the legislature went back and both houses voted to take back the powers, Cuomo would have to relinquish these extraordinary pandemic powers. But the Democrat majority in both houses has refused to do that. And the irony of Cuomo's book is he's writing a book like it's over. Everything is fine. I'm going to write my book and take my victory lap. It's coming out in October. Okay, well, if it's over and we've done so well and the handling was, quote, beautiful, as he said at the Democrat convention the other day, then relinquish your extraordinary powers. God forbid, we need to hand them back to you at some point for a temporary time period to deal with a second wave or a third wave or something else. We can reconvene and do that. We can even convene on Zoom now, as we've been doing for the last 4 or 5 months. So there's no need for him to have these extra powers, especially if he's writing the victory book. Hey, one thing you mentioned to me off the air, Dean, which I thought was very interesting. People's free expression is under attack from all sides, and the tech giants and the tech monopolies are attacking conservatives, and you hear that nationally, where they're silencing conservatives and making their content more difficult to see, or suspending their sites. And you heard some local conservative groups that were having their social media presence squashed by the tech giants inexplicably.
Yeah, so I guess Facebook and I think Twitter as well, yesterday not only disbanded their, let's call it, business page, but they also disbanded their personal pages. And so and I know some of these groups, and some of them made no threatening, remarks or anything else. It just happened to be that they were classified in this category, and they just took it upon themselves to wipe out everything that they stood for. So if we're not going to, that's the thing with Facebook. I mean, they keep on claiming they're a media outlet, but then they're not a media outlet, so they shouldn't be regulated. But when we have somebody that has pretty much a monopoly on the way we receive our information anymore today, the government should step in. And I'm not a government intrusion type of guy, but there's too much at stake here, because they are altering, what's going to happen in this presidential race.
It's interesting because I was a big fan of the show House of Cards. And in one of the seasons, Frank Underwood, who's a villain, he's an arch villain, he's a bad guy, he's a murderer, he does everything wrong. He's running for re-election. It takes place in 2016, and he's running for re-election, his character. And he gets with one of these tech oligarchs who's going to basically abuse his social media platform to sway people on gun control and to help Frank Underwood win. And that's art. But now life is imitating that art, and the most sinister politician ever in the fictional world, Frank Underwood. He did this 4 years ago, and now we're having it done in real life. It's really quite unbelievable that that's happening. We have to stand up against it.
It's amazing. There's a few shows that have just come true to life, and it's amazing how Hollywood has been out in front of what's been going on in our lives.
Yeah, you're right about that, Dean Michael. I appreciate you joining me. Where can people learn a little bit more about you and your campaign, Dean?
As the the thing down below says #Dean for New York. So you can go to Dean for New York, www.com, or you can go to my Facebook page and Dean at Dean for New York.
All right. Hopefully they don't shut down your Facebook page and my Facebook page.
I got to be careful what I say.
I know. You're right. All right, Dean Michael, all the best to you. Good luck. About 75 days to the election. I think you're fighting a good fight. I think you got a real shot come November.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.